Hello and welcome to True Crime Diary, a light-hearted podcast on a serious subject. Every 2 weeks we look back through true crime stories to discuss an event that took place on this week in history. I'm your host Mark Decana, and with me as always are my friends Jed Lester.
Hello.
And Rue Turner.
Hello.
So the date we're looking at this week is the 3rd of July, and in 1946, Doreen Marshall was strolling along the promenade in Bournemouth when she met a handsome man who introduced himself as Group Captain Rupert Brooke. They took afternoon tea and then later dinner together. Marshall requested a taxi, but Brooke insisted on walking her home. That was the last time she was seen alive. Dun, dun, dun.
It is a bit like that, isn't it?
Never to be seen again. Alive.
Cliche beginning of a movie.
Has this got a title?
A title? It's Neville Heath, also known as the Lady Killer.
I reckon he done it.
You reckon? Case closed.
Heard of lady killers.
Yeah, well, the phrase lady killer is usually used in terms of like someone who's dashing and a ladies' man, good with the women.
And often in the modern sense, it is the lady who is the killer when you talk about a lady killer.
That's a lady killer, not a lady killer.
Yeah.
But in this case, he was a lady killer and a killer of ladies.
Or lady.
Well, I've told you about one. I didn't mean
that. Right, sorry.
There was only one.
It's like, it's the apostrophe that's done us in. It's like Jaws, isn't it?
There's no apostrophe in Jaws.
Lesser known Jaw film. So he is a lady killer, but more than one, basically.
Yes, he's a lady killer and a lady killer and another lady killer.
Okay, fine.
A killer of two ladies in the spring and summer of 1946.
Yeah.
They're notable, probably quite famous because of the horrific nature of the crime.
Oh, right, okay. Right, fine. So who is he? Is he who he says he is, for starters? Because he had quite I suspect at that time of life, if you have that quite attractive kind of captain kind of person, it would go down well, basically.
Yeah, it was very dashing looking, very handsome, piercing blue eyes by all accounts.
Isn't he a lady killer?
And he was former military,
right? Okay,
but he wasn't.
But not at the level.
Well, he kept changing his rank. He kept telling people he had his different rank. So he'd say
presumably
to one
upwards.
Yeah, the alias he used when he spoke to Doreen Marshall was Rupert Brooke, Group Captain Rupert Brooke.
Sounds quite good.
Yeah, but Rupert Brooke was the name of a war poet who used to visit Bournemouth. So he was hanging around in Bournemouth and thought, no, what's a name I can make up? I know, a famous Bournemouth resident.
Sure, yeah.
But it was a First World War war poet, so obviously they didn't put two and two together.
He went to a fairly decent school as well, didn't he? So, I mean, he would have been, like, when he was at school, he would have been rubbing shoulders with sort of fairly decent, classy people.
Yeah, he was middle class,
so he could have
background.
His father, like, went without quite a lot of things so that they could pay for him to go to this decent school. So he should have had a good education, but I mean, he was truant and all sorts at the school.
Yeah.
In fact, other alumni from that same school are people like Raymond Briggs.
Oh, really?
Ooh.
Yeah.
What school are we talking about? Somewhere in Bournemouth?
No, it's Rutledge School in London.
Mm-hmm.
Is it London?
Yeah, southwest London, near Merton.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and more recent years, John Major went there as well. It gives you a kind of sample of the type of people that were at that school.
Future leaders and writers.
And illustrators.
Yeah,
that's true. of Father
the
Christmas.
Snowman.
Well, if you can't draw and you can't lead a nation, you join the army. So that's what he did.
Right, okay.
Well, he joined the Air Force initially, before the outbreak of the Second World War.
Like everyone did.
He joined the Air Force, but he got kicked out. He went AWOL, absent without leave, and was kicked out of the Air Force. And basically he became a criminal, using aliases such as Lord Dudley and Lieutenant Colonel Armstrong.
My name is Sir Lancelot of Camelot.
So he's elevated his status.
He's going for the I mean, it probably worked for a while, didn't it? Obviously, I don't know what he did, but the bad things that he did. But things like chucking those titles to certain people, you get away with a lot, basically, don't you?
Exactly. When the war broke out, he ended up joining the South African Air Force. He went into this Army Service Corps in the Middle East, but he jumped ship effectively on the way back to England. And he joined South African Air Force, where he did actually make captain. So he was a captain.
Okay.
So he's started off quite well to do. He's already got himself a little bit of form for like fraud and theft. But yeah, goes into the war. He's in the Air Force, and then he gets captain. He gets married, and then there's this episode where he was caught wearing medals he wasn't entitled to. So he's again inflating his status. And he was court-martialed.
Only good guys win medals. And you, sir, are no good guy.
So far, as far as I know, it's been nothing other than the odd naughty thing, as opposed to mass killing.
Lies and fraud.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what? As far as I'm aware, if you're a robber, you're a robber. And if you're a frauder, you're a frauder. You don't go nicking milk bottles one day and then mass killing the next week. You kind of do what you do, really, don't you? But as he's kind of swapped over to another way hideous form of naughtiness.
Yeah, we all know that milk bottle theft is the gateway crime.
Yeah. It's all started with milk bottles.
Tale as old as time.
Why on earth would that have gone very, very south?
Well, it seems that he had a little predilection for sadomasochism, let's say, or sadism. For sure.
Right. Oh, okay.
While he was in South African Air Force, he found brothels in Egypt that they had what they called an Amazon room. Apparently, where apparently you could pay to whip young girls for the night. But this is where he obviously got his kicks. Whether they wanted to be whipped or not, I don't know. But service was available.
Yeah. That's shocking.
Following the war, we're now in the beginning of 1946. He's back in Britain. So his military days are over. He's demobbed and he's back in town, which is where it sort of immediately starts to go unpleasant. So 1946, he's back in Britain in February, and in the Strand Palace Hotel in London, the staff at the hotel found Pauline Breeze in a hotel room with Heath. So staff had come rushing to the room, hearing a woman scream, and sort of broke into the room. And she was naked and tied up, and he was preparing to beat her.
So this is what happens when you don't set a safe word.
There you go, see?
Either that or he was ignoring the safe word, which is just, that's against protocols. That's not good.
Exactly. Craziness. The thing is, she didn't press charges. So she wanted to, she didn't want any publicity.
Right. Was she married or was she an actor or?
I don't know her details, really. There's not a lot about her.
There isn't. I couldn't really find anything about her. But it's understandable people wouldn't have wanted to go public or go to court about that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Remember, you must not tell a soul.
Especially then. Are we still talking 1946?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to say anything, really, are you? Other than in tight-knit circles.
And we don't know to what extent that she had been complicit in what was going on in that room.
Yeah, sure.
But basically, she went back to he met her, she went back to his room. And then what happened after that, we don't know whether she was like, I'm going to go, or...
Is sadomasochism, is that, Rue? Is that kind of...
a thing down your way?
Both have to be into it.
Well, yeah, otherwise it's torture.
Exactly. So it wasn't sadomasochism. It was just him being.
Well, if the receiver isn't complicit, it's torture.
Exactly.
It was sadism on his part.
Yeah.
Yes.
We don't know if it was masochism on her part or not.
No.
Yes. Right. Okay.
But regardless of her standing when it all began, her outcry, whether they were screams of joy or terror, aroused, the staff to come rushing in, at which point they see what they see, which is a naked woman tied to being beaten.
Yeah, sure.
She doesn't want that.
And that's never going to look good.
It's never going to look good. Yeah, exactly.
No. It's fine. It's not what you think.
Yeah, and there's all sorts of reasons that she wouldn't have wanted to press charges apart from the public embarrassment and things like that. I mean, it could be simply that she did invite it and she was quite happy with it, and maybe the shouting and screaming got out of hand, and that's, and called the staff in. It may have been, sadomasochism is an act of pleasure and joy on both parts. The point at which one party isn't enjoying it, it's no longer.
It's not sadomasochism.
No, it's then sexual abuse.
Sure,
yeah. On the one hand, 50 Shades of Grey. On the other,
that's just cinematic abuse.
Yeah, I mean, it would abuse my eyes watching it.
Yeah,
for sure.
I've never seen that.
It's definitely abuse. I went to the police immediately.
And you're forever grateful.
Yeah. On the one hand, I don't like to talk about it, but on the... In June, Neville Heath, he went to Notting Hill Gate and he booked into a hotel, calling himself Lieutenant Colonel Neville Heath. He kept his name. There at that hotel, he met a woman called Yvonne Simmons. Now, he said that she was his wife. They just met. She stayed the night and he said he was going to marry her. And then she left the next day. And then a week later, he met a woman named Marjorie Gardner. Now, nobody noticed when he took her back to his hotel room that it was a different person.
Right.
They didn't notice.
I don't know that it would.
I don't think they would either.
No.
Just, as long as they looked the part or looked as if they were together, no one's going to...
I don't think you'd notice. I mean, in a staff, let's say there's a dozen members of staff, and there's, say, only 40 rooms in the hotel. That's a lot of people to keep track of a lot of other people. I don't think you'd notice. But if the man...
If he was paying, perhaps I'm jumping to conclusions that he paid, but if he was paying, you would just kind of remember him, really, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I suppose. But that came up in terms of this woman, Pauline Breeze, who from February in London in the Strand Palace Hotel. She was mistakenly identified as being this Marjorie Gardner. So when Marjorie Gardner was for dead in her room, they thought that it was the same woman who'd basically gone back.
Okay.
If you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Nudge.
Nudge, nudge. Eh?
Say no more.
Say no more, know what I mean? Nudge, nudge.
So Marjorie Gardner, she's the third woman that we're aware of that he's encountered. He spent the evening with her. They met, they went out dancing, and back at the hotel, they had to break into the room because the maid service hadn't been able to get into the room. They broke in and they found Gardner naked on the bed again, bound ankles. Her wrists had marks to show that she had been bound. And there were 17 whip marks on her body. Mm-hmm. She'd been bitten on the nipples and apparently had some sort of instrument inserted into the vagina.
Yikes.
So she'd been horribly abused.
Yeah.
Like a saxophone.
What?
I'm just thinking of an instrument.
Doesn't have to be a musical instrument.
I know. I'm immediately thinking of a flute, an oboe, because I think of because I'm thinking of a musical instrument.
An instrument.
Now, I'm not wanting to play this down, but 17 strikes with a whip isn't a huge amount. So I'm guessing that these strikes are considerable.
It's a fair amount. It's more than I'd like.
Well,
they must be fairly tough strikes.
But I don't think that killed her, did it?
No,
just
I don't think it would have
the
done. Yeah.
Deal.
No, she died of suffocation.
Oh,
right. But all of the wounds were inflicted while she was alive. So, it was obviously a sadistic, like a torture, like you said.
Mid 20th century BTK kind of guy.
Yeah.
Because she died, the will we never know that any of it up until the point she died was consensual?
No. Well, obviously the only one who can say that is her. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think the only assumption it's reasonably safe to make is that up to the point where she entered his room, it was consensual.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that, that's
really.
probably all you can assume.
Yeah, I mean the wounds were savage. They were nasty. So
Yeah, sure.
the weapon that she'd been beaten with left diamond pattern marks on the body where she'd been struck quite hard. So it actually imprinted on the flesh.
Gosh, yeah.
And so they said it had to be a leather riding crop.
Right, that's quite a distinctive mark, isn't it?
Yeah. In fact, the pathologist said, if you find that whip, you found your man, which implies that no one in London rides except one man. But
yeah, sure.
So
it's either him or it's Jackie Collins.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What was that called? That book? There's a
series.
Yeah. But it was all of her books.
All of the books, yeah. It's just a picture of a
that's true.
woman.
Just pick one at random.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Polo, that's one.
Oh yeah,
Polo.
that was it.
Yeah, that was it.
That's
Yeah,
one
I'm
too.
thinking of the cover.
Yeah, someone's bottom.
Yeah.
They're all someone's bottom in
Being
wearing jodhpurs.
whipped. Being whipped.
It's called Whip My Jodhpurs.
You're saying it weird. Why are you putting so much emphasis on the H?
What are you talking about? I'm just saying it. Cool whip.
So the timeline is that he met a girl that he beat, and then he went somewhere else and met a girl that he said he would marry, spent the night with her, then she left. Then he met this girl, Marjorie Gardner, and she died. So then Heath went to the South Coast. He went to see the woman that he claimed he was going to marry, Simmons. He spent time there.
Yes. He went back to her.
And now he's calling himself Lieutenant Colonel Neville Heath, as far as he was concerned. Then he went to Bournemouth, and now he's using the Rupert Brooke alias, Group Captain Rupert Brooke. And that's where he met Doreen Marshall, who we introduced ourselves with.
Yes.
She'd gone down to Bournemouth to convalesce from influenza.
Right.
So they met on the promenade, as I say. He introduced himself. They went walking, and they went for afternoon tea, and then later they went out for dinner. She was going to get a taxi home, and he said he would walk her home. That's when she disappeared. When they left the hotel, he said to the doorman, the night porter, that he would be gone about half an hour. And Doreen Marshall said, no, it's only going to be a quarter of an hour. Basically saying, no, he's going to walk me home and be straight back, kind of thing. And that was the last she was seen by the porter, was the last person to see her alive, apart from Heath. It was July, about a week later, when Marshall's disappearance was reported to the police by the manager of the hotel. And Heath volunteered to phone the police to see if he could help.
Do you need me out there? Do you need my assistant?
Right. Classic thing to do.
Hubris.
Yeah. Inserting yourself into the investigation like a proper serial killer.
Sure, yeah.
Such arrogance.
Yeah.
A week's quite a long time, isn't it, for her to be reported missing? Seems ridiculous. That took
I
a week,
suppose if she's paid up, they got no reason to. She's not. When the maid service goes around, she's not in a room. If they can get in and not find a dead body, I suppose they don't think more about it.
Okay.
And the room's paid for. Then there's nothing to worry about.
So, what are the? Do we know the details of that?
Well, she was found the way that these people are usually found, by a young woman out walking her dog.
Yep.
They found her body.
So the dog found it, probably.
Well, the dog found it, yeah, let's be honest. Yeah. They found her body. It was naked, mutilated again. She had been tied up at one point, although there were no lashings on her. One of her nipples had been beaten clean off, and her throat had been cut. And also she'd had something inserted into the vagina again.
Okay, there's a clear pattern emerging.
Yeah, they said it might have been a tree branch.
Right.
Jesus.
So there were other wounds as well, but basically she'd been violently and savagely beaten and attacked with a knife as well.
You have to wonder what kind of brought him to be in that state. What in his life taught him that this is a behaviour. Do you know what I mean? Because extreme violent behaviour doesn't just crop up as an idea one afternoon.
That's what I'm saying about his early forays were not that at all, and yet suddenly it went bang, and he completely went.
Yeah, I mean, was it something at Rutledge School? Was it something to do with his childhood, with his parents? Or?
Yeah, I mean, maybe it was a school thing. Maybe John Major and Raymond Briggs committed crimes.
Maybe they're responsible.
We don't know what they got up to.
with Edwina Curry.
Hey,
You know, he actually, like in July 1946, he tried to chat up Molly Weir from Rentaghost.
Oh yeah, very good.
We'd never have had her as the witch in Rentaghost, or like the rest of her amazing career, because 1946 she was still quite a young actor.
Yeah, this was between the two killings.
Yeah. I mean, she certainly would have been a victim.
Yeah, for sure. And there was another woman as well who was in another actress called Moira Lister, and she was in The Cruel Sea, the 1953 movie The Cruel Sea.
Yeah.
He went to the police station and he identified Doreen Marshall from a photograph that the police had and said, "Yep.
Oh yeah, that's her."
I went out with her. I walked her to the gardens, the Bournemouth Gardens, and that's where I left her." So he didn't walk her home after all that, he claims. Yep. He walked her to some gardens and then went back to the hotel.
So he said, "I saw her on the night of the murder."
Yeah, well, he obviously knew that the doorman at his hotel knew or would recognise that she was with him, or possibly, or when she with this mistaken identity, maybe they wouldn't. But
that's true. Yeah.
Or someone else might have seen him at the hotel. So he said, "Yes, I was with her." So he's covered. He's basically admitting that.
He fronted up. He fronted up that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then said, "Oh, but I just left her in the garden."
Right.
So Doreen Marshall, her sister and her father had gone down, and the police detective on the case, he introduced the Marshalls to Neville Heath, but under the name Brooke, which is the name he was using in Bournemouth.
Right.
Because he'd been involved in this incident in London, they'd seen his name publicised. Right. And they said, "Hang on, isn't your name Heath, not Brooke?"
Yeah.
So his deception started to unravel almost immediately.
Sure, yeah. Right, okay.
"That's not me. You sure?" "No, yeah, it is, yeah." They said, "I'm just going to go and get my coat from the hotel." And the police said, "Okay, we'll get it for you." They went there. They found a cloakroom ticket in the coat pocket. They went to the cloakroom, found a suitcase, opened the suitcase. There was a riding crop inside with a diamond weave pattern on it.
The exact thing that they were told they should find. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, hang on a minute. This might be you.
Good news is, I found your hat.
God, that didn't take very... Are we talking about the same day that he'd confessed to seeing that woman?
Yes, the same day.
The next day? Or...
The 6th of July. He spoke to Sutter at Bournemouth.
So he thought
station.
He might be quite cool and go, "Yeah, I'm gonna nip this in the bud by saying I was with her."
Yeah.
Within hours, he'd literally been... What was he arrested?
Nicked. He was arrested.
Yeah.
Wow.
But they didn't find the body until the next day.
Sure.
So
what did they arrest him for?
The other woman.
Gardner,
Marjorie Gardner, because she'd been seen with Heath. No, the police were looking
two and two together.
Yeah. And he'd used his real name.
Yes.
So now he's using an alias, and they went, "Hang on, aren't you him? Because you look like him." So yeah, it's me. So on the 5th of July, Marshall's reported missing. On the 6th of July, Heath phones the police, goes in and says, "Yeah, that's her. That's the photo." And the same day, they realise that Brooke is Heath, and they get the coat and the ticket and the crop. And it's the following day that the body is found of Doreen Marshall,
and it's
with the same wounds and the same
similar, similar.
And was she? I'm assuming immediately connected to him.
Yeah, straight away. I mean, it's obvious.
Yeah.
Good, I say.
Yeah, they got him.
I still don't understand the how it went from something to something else, but I don't know really. You haven't finished the tale yet, I suppose. But
well, no, I mean he's started out as a petty criminal, as these people do, and then when he's barracked in Egypt, he starts to exercise his penchant for sadism, beating young girls, and now he's escalated to beating more violently and sadistically until someone dies.
Yes, right, okay, yeah.
So he's kind of always been a liar and a sadist. It just reached new heights.
He had more confidence, or more of an outlet, or something,
and just couldn't get sated.
Yeah,
sure,
exactly.
yeah.
Just couldn't quite get enough, and it resulted in the death of at least 2 women.
Yeah, exactly. The 2 that we know of.
Yeah, I mean, there could have been deaths in Egypt. Those would have been very easy to cover up.
Yeah, For sure.
That may have been something that he, a high point that he tried to repeat. But of course, is a lot harder in sort of the West at that time.
Yeah. So he went to trial in September, and he told his counsel to plead guilty.
Yep.
But his counsel, J.D. Caswell, said that basically, are you sure about it? He questioned what he was going to do, and he said, "All right, put me down as not guilty."
Right. I'd take Caswell's word for it. You know what I mean? If Caswell told me to do something, I'd do it. I mean, he's been involved in some pretty decent cases over the years.
Well, he
prosecuted on behalf of the families who lost people in the Titanic.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he got them, I think, about £100 a head because they proved the captain was the captain was negligent.
Right.
Yeah. Well, this isn't true at all.
Well, it's true in law.
Well, they proved it, but I mean, it's not like he was there to say what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the Titanic. There's a lot of stories about the Titanic. So
yeah.
I mean, the White Star Line, basically, as soon as it went down, the first thing that the White Star Line did is fire all the crew.
Wow.
Because they weren't at work.
Joe Dirt, you're fired.
They weren't at their post because their post was underwater.
Oh, wow.
And therefore their wages stopped.
That is heartless.
You mean the dead and the alive and the dead? I mean,
yeah.
Not much need to sack the dead, I don't think.
But they did, though, didn't they?
Well, their employment ceased at that moment, and therefore
that's
they weren't
death in
entitled to
service.
any. Yeah,
it's death in service. If they had a death in service in their agreement, then the families would have benefited from that.
In 1912, I doubt they had.
Maybe not.
Yeah,
maybe not.
So he worked on that case. Is that prosecution?
Yeah, well, he prosecuted.
This one's defence, though, isn't it?
It is.
That is a civil prosecution. This is a criminal defence. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, the reason he said "let's go not guilty" is because he was going for insanity.
Sure,
So he was calling expert witnesses to basically say, "Well,
it wasn't wasn't the insanity claim based on he knew it? What was it? He didn't know that it was immoral.
He did
do it, but he didn't know that it was wrong."
So Caswell called this expert witness named William Hubert, who was supposed to be an expert criminal psychiatrist. And his testimony said that he thought that Heath knew what he was doing, but didn't know that it was morally wrong.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's an argument ever.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that Hubert wasn't really able to defend his own point of view because he was a morphine addict and he was under the influence while he was in court. So basically, the prosecution destroyed him as a witness.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's kind of Hubert's family all over, though, because Hubert's brother was a well-known artist who's actually got works in the Tate and the National, I think. Mm-hmm. But he's it's somewhere between sort of Paul Klee and Georges Braque, I suppose, in styling. But it's
the Cubists.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's not really Cubist. It's more like Klee than Cubism, but there's that form structure kind of abstraction to it. Yeah.
He works with clay.
No, he's a painter.
Works with some clay.
No.
Works with a man named Clay.
Paul Klee, K-L-E accent E.
Oh, sorry.
I always pronounced it Klee.
Yeah, so did I, till I heard people who know better say it.
Maybe they're wrong.
Maybe they're wrong, yeah.
Yeah, who knows? Ask Klee.
Never criticise someone who's only ever read a word.
Now, the prison doctors said that they thought, this I don't understand. They said he's definitely not insane. He is a psychopath, but he's not insane.
He just knows what he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing, and he wants to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
The man is clear in his mind, but his soul is mad.
So he was found guilty. He was taken away, smoked a pipe in the police car as he was taken to prison.
Oh yeah.
And he was sentenced to death by hanging.
Oh.
He was offered a glass of whiskey by the governor.
Sounds like a reasonable idea.
And he said, "While you're about it, sir, you might make that a double." He wrote a letter to his parents saying, "My only regret at leaving the world is that I've been damned unworthy of you both." And then on the 16th of October, 1946, Pentonville Prison in London, he met one Albert Pierpoint.
Hey, friend of the podcast.
Friend of the podcast. He marched him into the gallows and pulled the lever.
Right.
We don't have times for that, do we? But we know it'd be under 12 seconds, don't we?
It'd be between 7.5 and 11 seconds.
You'd barely have had time to put the glass of whiskey down.
Yes. Straight away, the day of his execution, the same day, Madame Tussauds unveiled his waxwork.
Oh, no!
All prepared and ready, complete with blue eyes, dressed and prepared to reveal to the public.
Okay, so how long was it between his arrest and execution? How long did they have? I mean, they must have just had weeks, wasn't they?
He was arrested in July, and he was executed in October.
Okay,
3 months or something.
Yeah,
but it probably takes a while, doesn't it? But
3 months, that's not a lot of time, really.
Yeah,
it probably takes a while to do, but that's so ridiculous, isn't it? It's like, so why on earth would that? Mind you, at that point, it wasn't all celebs, was it? It was, well, as we've said before,
he's a celeb.
Episodes.
Yeah,
well,
it was more,
but not that kind of celeb. And why on earth would he be put on show
at the time? It wouldn't be celebs
make
like
money
we know.
out of. No, I know.
It wouldn't have been celebs like we know, but it would have been.
We've said before, it's like the news before, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's the 3D news.
Unless the whole thing was like that, where it was literally, waxworks of people in the news.
Well, no, it was people of the day. So writers, artists,
Why on earth would he be in there? I mean, it's absolutely
rapists and murderers.
It's his family thinking of that, going, oh, great, he's been unveiled.
They had the Chamber of Horrors. At the trial, there was a queue around the block to get into the gallery. Mostly women.
Yeah, because he's so handsome.
Because he's so handsome. They want to take a look at the charming lady killer.
Right, yeah.
Oh, don't mind if I do. They're unbelievable. They managed to just...
Absolutely atrocious. I can't believe they got away with it.
For so many years.
Oh, television.
Well, that's true, yeah. I mean,
let's go and see him. Well, I can't get into the courtroom because there's a big queue. So I'll go down to Madame Tussauds so you can punch him in the face.
It's like a sideshow, isn't it? Well, it literally is a sideshow.
It literally is a sideshow. Yeah. It's a tent of freaks, but under...
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And you have to remember it in that context, really, as it would have been someone dressed up as him in a tent.
Yeah. Well, you don't want to meet the real person, do you?
No.
You already go up and go, oh, look at him, he's a killer. It's safer to do that, especially in a room full of killers. If you go into a room and it's got Crippen and Birkenhair and Charles Peace and everyone else in it, you go, oh, look, there you go. That's a night out that you don't want to be part of.
But you can pay $1 and scare your girlfriend, can't you?
Yeah.
Basically.
I always remember. I remember I've said before that the museum, the Chamber of Horrors, closed in 2016, which is the only reason that most of the people in there actually ever were removed, because it was still popular even then, like 100 years later, nearly, from some of the people in there.
Yeah.
I remember an advert in the 80s for the Chamber of Horrors. Do you remember this? There was there's two punks, because it's the 80s and they were out of date. Yeah. Two punks, and they go into the Chamber of Horrors, and one says to the other,
"Here, Cyril, where's this Jack the Ripper geezer then, eh?"
And the other one says,
"Well, I never found him, did they?"
And then they go, run away. They run out.
Madame Tussauds, all the people you ever wanted to meet, and a few you didn't.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. You remember that? I don't know why that sticks in my memory.
Classic 5-10 years out of date punk.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it only just got to advertising people.
Yeah, exactly. What's a trend that's faded away? Let's use that.
Well, what could scare a punk?
Yeah. In other news, he was inspiration for a number of stories and plays, most notably in Alfred Hitchcock's film Frenzy.
1972.
Barry Foster played the character of Robert Rusk, and Alfred Hitchcock gave him 2 books about Heath to read to inform his character. It was the inspiration for the character.
And if anybody wants to catch it, you can actually find the whole film on YouTube.
Oh, right. Cool. Frenzy. Great movie.
Yeah.
And another actor who modelled his performance on Neville Heath is Donald Sinden. Who played a murderer in the film Eyewitness, which is from 1956, British thriller. Yes, Donald Sinden. Of Never the Twain fame. That's where I know him from.
Well, yeah. I don't know him from anywhere else.
Yeah.
Was that your impersonation of Boris Johnson as well?
Name anything else that he was... I mean, I'm talking about popular that we know about. I mean, I know he was an actor and stuff, but...
Yeah, but I mean, we know him from a terrible television show.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
But he was in the Real Shakespeare Company. He was a very handsome, dapper young actor.
He walked to the boards.
Yeah, I mean, this was 30 years before Never the Twain in the 80s.
Yeah, Day of the Jackal.
Yeah. Oh, and also he was in The Cruel Sea.
The
movie.
Which has been mentioned already.
Yeah.
And the 70s sitcom Two's Company.
Yep. And Doctor in the House. Doctor at Large. And as well as The Cruel Sea, he was in Above Us the Waves. So he's only in sort of comedy doctor movies or wartime submarine movies.
That's pretty much all of the roles available at the time.
Yeah, and then latterly as an antiques dealer opposite Windsor Davies.
Yeah.
That's all for this time. If you want to know more about what we've talked about on this episode, then just Google it or something. You can listen to all of our previous episodes on our website. That's www.truecrimediary.co.uk. Please remember to leave a review on your podcast provider if you can, or you can email us. That's stuff@truecrimediary.co.uk. My thanks to Jed and Rue and to all of you for listening, and we'll see you again on next date in our True Crime Diary.